Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to your post-match Raw on AI Pro and live on Discord. Podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. I'm Trev Downey. And joining me to give their immediate reactions to Rangers 1, Liverpool 7 in the Champions League from Ibrox are Dave Hendrick and Hari Sethi. And we're all back again after what was a less than enjoyable occasion last time out to have a bit of a cackle as this one turned out, Dave, because none of us could have seen that coming as the first half was sort of lumbering along in a very uninspiring way. It's obviously a little bit of an exaggeration, but in so many ways I'll take it. I feel that there was an element of catharsis in there. I feel that there's a couple of, I'm not going to say corners turned at all, but a couple of things that we desperately needed, all of which might make those little differences if we're ever going to rescue anything from this season. And honestly, the one true thing about it all, Dave, is this competition represents our best chance of any sort of major success this season. So it's nice to see it back on track.
Yeah, I mean, what a difference 45 minutes make. At half time, I'd imagine we were all dreading doing this because these aren't fun to do when you play as badly as we have been and as badly as we were in that first half. And yeah, we come out of the game having absolutely smacked the shit out of them in the second half, sent all of their fans running off out the door with 15 minutes left home to molest their flags or whatever it is they do behind closed doors. And there is absolutely no stadium in the world in which I would rather us go and win 7-1. Absolutely no stadium in the world in which I would rather that happen. You're right. This competition is our best opportunity to win a major honour. This is our one. And this is the competition that we have excelled in under Jurgen Klopp. 3 finals. And, you know, if you think back, we went out one year because Adrian decided that he, had had enough of playing Champions League football that year and didn't want to play anymore. We went out another year because all our centre-backs were injured. You know, when this team is right, this team gets to European Cup finals, and that is a very special thing. And I do feel like under Klopp, because we've never really had that great depth, we've always been a little bit short somewhere, whether it was at centre-back or in midfield or, you know, needing one more up front. We've never had that great depth, which can rule you out of sort of a dynastic approach to the league. You look at City have world-class players to come into that team no matter who gets hurt. We don't have that. What we do have is an exceptional group of players that are perfectly suited to cup football. And we saw it last year. The first time under Klopp we really took the domestic cup seriously, we went and won both of them. You know, 3 European Cup finals. This is how we are. This is the team that Jurgen has built. And again, don't want to get ahead of myself. Don't want to, like you, there's the whole turn the corner thing. We'll leave that for other people to spout on about. What we saw tonight was one individual in Bobby Firmino decide that he was single-handedly going to drag this team to victory. Even as others flailed around him, he was going to be the one to grab this game by the scruff of the neck and drag us across the line. He scores 2, he sets up the goal for Darwin, and then Mo Salah comes on. And Trev, what we have seen tonight is a revelation, something that I'm not sure any of us were aware of. When you allow Mo Salah to have the ball in central areas, great things can happen. We gave that fella 350 grand a week in the off-season and employed him to be the world's most highly paid linesman until this point in the season. This is where you get the best out of Mo. In the half space, working in between fullback and centre-back. He's the most devastating player in the world in that area. And tonight he finally gets to play in that area and we see what happens. Brilliant win. Brilliant win.
I love the concept of somebody listening to this show and not getting the drenched amounts of irony that were lashed over your last few sentences because they may not quite get it. And it's such a very, very validly made point with these glorious examples that we're going to discuss to illustrate that point. And I see a bandwagon growing for the concept, and again, hold on to your asses here, of Mo and Darwin as a partnership in a central sort of way. And I would only love to see that as well. And I think there's got to be some sort of wake-up call for whoever is calling the shots in terms of how Mo Salah is being employed, because we have on our books one of the very best in the world, a man who was for a period of time last season in the early half of it, the best in the world. And we are wasting him. I don't make any bones about the fact that I'm among the people saying he hasn't been in great form when he has had opportunities and found himself in those spaces. That is actually a fact. But we can also say that and hold the same opinion or a contrasting opinion, which is we're also not utilising the lad to the best of his abilities. It's a very, very strange scenario. And I look forward to being able to talk about how he may have proved a point or two himself tonight. And Harry, we have racked up the goals there in that second half in a way that was, I mean, again, like Dave, there aren't too many places I'd be happier to be maybe leaning into a bit of humiliation of the opposition. It's just, I can't help it. But I'm enjoying that aspect of it immensely. But the point I was making to Dave there about us needing certain things there. We got another goal for our centre forward who had been, and again, I don't make any bones about saying this, a little bit out of sorts in his first half form in terms of his touch and control. It's a thing that I was starting to get worried about. I have in previous games as well. I'm not saying, I don't believe he's not a good footballer. That's idiocy. But I want to see him very effective all the time. And he's feeding on scraps there in that first half. It's not good. So a goal for him. The couple of goals for Bobby, who again has, a lot left in the tank and may well be central to any victory that we do have. And, and let's not even mention that outrageous set and assist. And then to get the main man back, hammering goals in, it's a delight. And I didn't see it coming, Harry. I'll be honest with you. I did not see it coming. Halfway through that first half, I was feeling quite despondent.
No, I think you were right, Sue. I mean, the first half was incredibly grim, and there were. I think Konate is probably the only bright spark from that first half in terms of just being delighted he was back, and you could see some of the qualities that he possesses that could really help us, and that didn't change even when he eventually went off the pitch. I thought he had a great game, and again sort of showed what an asset he's going to be for us. But otherwise, the first half was incredibly grim viewing, but yeah, just like Dave, it sounds like yourself as well. Some may call it a mainstream sort of pursuit, Trev, but I'm a massive fan of this giving most out of the ball near and around the goal hobby of ours, and it's it was great to see him back in sort of ruthless form again. As you mentioned, Darwin getting that goal after a pretty thankless task for the majority of the evening, to be honest, feeding off like pretty dreadful service into him. The number of times there were some good runs and people under hitting passes right behind him, pushing him out further wide. And wouldn't claim to say that he's the most glistening player in sort of his build up, but again, we sort of knew the player we were getting. He's the tip of the spear. When Bobby scored that second goal, I was just feeling for Darwin a little bit, because I thought what he would have given just to be on the end of a cross of that quality all night, because it was probably the first bit of quality we saw from a wide area, like the Joe Gomez put that ball in. But no, it's a very welcome tonic. I'm not getting carried away. I think we discussed on the last pod, Rangers are a poor side, and they're a side that would probably struggle in the championship as well. So I don't think it's a case of getting carried away, but there's important things there. There's Salah, getting in the feel again of being Mo Salah, scoring the fastest hat trick in Champions League history, being the I think I saw it as well, sort of the most goals scored for a single English club in the Champions League in the history of the competition. These are the sorts of things that we were saying on podcast last season, Trev, like coming onto pods and talking about all the records we were breaking in a positive sense. That's what I want to get back to. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that, and also really enjoyed Bobby all evening, including, as you mentioned, what in hindsight was a completely unnecessary flick assist for Nunes. Could have just passed the ball. Could have just passed it.
Just so totally unnecessary. That's what makes it beautiful. I mean,
all that was missing was him sticking his tongue out at one of the Rangers players as he did it. Like,
yes, and looking the opposite way. If he'd made it a no-look pass, it would have been just absolute perfection. But man alive, I look forward to analysing each of these goals. And Harry, just stay with me for a second to talk about the Liverpool lineup tonight, because I know Dave and Carl will have had a look at Rangers, and they made some changes, so I wouldn't mind having a look at those with Dave. And Jurgen made some changes too. He went with Alisson. We saw Ibu Konate take his place again, and just in case it doesn't get said often enough in the podcast tonight, God, he's good. We also had Joey Gomez, who grew into that game, I thought, again, as the game went on and got better and better and better. That was a good sign too. Virgil and Tsimikas making up the back four. Henderson, Fabinho and Elliott, as we reverted more to a shape that we've been very familiar with over the years. And Bobby, Darwin and Carvalho made up our attacking quotient. Interesting lineup from Kloppo. The last time Elliott and Carvalho started, it didn't go as he had planned and hoped. On the bench, we had Thiago. When he came on, that was a little joy to behold. Obviously, we were on the up anyway, but it's always just good to see him come on and be good and impose himself, even if he was throwing himself into tackles like a lunatic in a way I didn't appreciate. Jimmy Miller came off the benches as well. More of Mo later. Adrian Jota, who came off the bench. Robertson, who came off the bench to great effect, actually. Bacetic, Phillips and Gallagher made up our bench. What did you make of how we lined up, and what was it you think Jurgen was trying to do? Was there huge elements of looking after certain individuals for the City game? And if so, does that strike you? Because it did me, as a fella who's still maybe not quite understanding the priority of this season, because anyone who thinks we're still in with Shed for the league is surely having a laugh. And I would have thought we needed to just get this game won. So how were you feeling when you saw the lineup?
Yeah, I had a few questions, but I think in terms of what you're mentioning around keeping players fit and sort of available for the City game, I mean, I think none of us were sure just exactly how fit Robertson was. So I pretty much expected him to come off the bench. Thiago, it's just so important for us that I can see the argument for resting him in this game, because you do look at these teams and think, well, Liverpool should have enough to beat Rangers without Thiago Alcantara. As tempting as it is to sort of play him against Rangers and watch him do what he did at times, even during that small cameo. Jota, perhaps I was a little bit surprised not to see him. Salah is always a shock, right, when he's not in the team. And this, again, seemed like an opportunity for him to get some goals, and it proved like it was an opportunity for him to get some goals, even if he did it in a bit more efficient fashion than we were maybe expecting before the lineup was announced. But yeah, a bit surprised to see both Carvalho and Elliott, and I was questioning how that would work, questioning how the lack of pace in those areas would potentially sort of come back to bite us a little bit, and also just a little bit concerned around the defensive work rate that was going to be asked of the likes of Elliott on that right hand side. But I thought, whilst it was far from perfect, to be honest, in the first half, I thought he did fairly well in what he did, and looked incredibly sharp after the second after half time, which was good enough. So always excited to see young players get an opportunity. It's been hard lines for Carvalho. I think there's been a number of games where he's come in and doesn't seem to have a role that necessarily suits all of his talents. And I thought he in particular really grafted to sort of work his way into that game at stages, and it seemed to completely sort of lost again, but really did work his way through a lot of graft into the game and having an influence on it. But yeah, Nunes partnering sort of, if you will, with Firmino. I wasn't necessarily sure how that would work in terms of those two complementing each other that well. I was slightly worried about just loads of people dropping deep to receive and then turn and find that nobody had run in behind, which actually did prove to be the case for large points of the game. But yeah, I think when we were speaking about the last Rangers game, we did say that most combinations of this Liverpool side and squad should be good enough to beat Rangers, even at the Ibrox with their crowd up for periods of time. So yeah, I wasn't too alarmed by it. I questioned some of the logic about it, and I think in the first half I was definitely questioning some of the logic around the lineup and some individual performances as well. But yeah, I think maybe it's hindsight bias now, seeing what happened, but and maybe it's also the fact that Bobby, as Dave mentioned, did take it upon himself to really drag the team through at points. But yeah, I can justify that selection.
Yeah, you're right. As the half wore on, it was, the eyebrows were getting further raised than they were maybe when the team was announced, and it did have that horrible feel that Carvalho wasn't going to be able to get into it, that Nunes was sort of isolated, that Mo was isolated again. It had that kind of frustrating feel. But yeah, we did put it right. And to speak briefly, Dave, with you about Rangers, they did shake it up as we expected they would. Tavernier, Golson, Davies and Barisic were their defence. Jack Lundstrom, Sakala came in, Arfield came in, Kent was there, and Cholak came in from the start as well. That was the least I thought they were going to do. I thought maybe at least one other, maybe Matondo or some of those might have gotten a chance as well. What did you make of how they went and what it was you thought Van Bronckhorst was trying to do by way of his setup? Because it seemed, just from the goings of the first half, that it might have had some success. He was trying to isolate a little bit of speed versus our men on the flanks, like they did in the second half with the subs at Anfield. And I guess you'd have to give some amount of credit for it partially coming off, or maybe coming off quite successfully in the first half.
Yeah, I thought first half, to their credit, they did match us. I think, that's equal parts them playing as well as they're capable of, and us being just a bit as bad as we're capable of being. But it was an aggressive, proactive lineup from Van Bronckhorst, very much looking to get the two wingers wide, isolated on the fullbacks, get their two fullbacks up in support, either on the underlap or the overlap. Arfield buzzing around in central areas, dropping in to make a third man in midfield when need be, and then getting forward in support of Cholak up front, who's a big, awkward character. He's got good first touch, good control, good awareness, knows where his teammates are, happy to bring them into the ball, into the game by giving them the ball, and then making that secondary movement, which is often underrated. You get a lot of strikers, they'll make that first movement when the ball doesn't come to them, or when they get it and dink it off. They kind of stand around, whereas he's very good at making that first run. And if he doesn't go, if the ball doesn't get to him, or he gets it and gives it, he'll always make a secondary run, which did cause us some trouble in that first half. There's no doubt about it. The thing is, though, we can praise them all day long, and I think there's a couple of their lads tonight that did deserve a lot of praise. But when you look at the players in that team, the lack of quality really does stand out to you? I mean, there's a couple of lads in that team that could play in the Premier League, and that's about it. I do want to give special mention to Fashion Sakala, whose name we both enjoyed last week. I know he was wearing Fashion Junior on his shirt today. I'd be very interested to meet Fashion Senior and ask about
Can you imagine?
ask about the heritage of the name. But he gave Kostas Tsimikas an absolute roasting in that first half. He absolutely torched Kostas 4 or 5 times down the flank. And like, we all like Kostas, but that fella did a recent video for Liverpool's YouTube where he and Diogo Jota went around handing out the latest copies of FIFA with all the players' stats. And every single player that he gave one to, he made them reaffirm the fact that he's quick. Sakala made him look like he was running in wellies tonight. And then, I mean, the less said about the free kick he took, the better. Like, his delivery wasn't great. He had a fairly poor game. And I don't think Robbo has too much to worry about. But the one thing I do want to say about our team, how much more at home did Harvey and Fabio look as wide players in a 4 than as the wide midfielders in a 3? These are the natural positions for these lads. Now, both of them struggled first half. They weren't tracking back. They weren't helping their fullbacks. And they were both getting a little bit lost. But in the second half, I thought it really clicked with them. Now, that it might have been a little bit of tactical instruction at half time. But whenever Harvey would come central, Fabio would stay wide. And when Fabio would come central, Harvey would immediately shift wide. And with that way, we were able to keep the field stretched and keep their defence opened up. Because in the first half, they kept both coming central and trying to link up with each other. And it was really easy for their defence to just get really condensed. The midfield 2 plus our field to stand back on their toes. And we were having a tough time playing through them. As soon as they made that little change at half time, where one kept staying wide and the other would buzz into central areas, the game opened up for us.
I would have zero problem with those 2 kids either side of Fab and Thiago and Mo and Darwin as our 2 against City. I'd have no problem with it. I'd love to see it. It would be exciting. And like I said, I want us to try things in league now because it can go and fuck itself. You know, honestly, what do people think is going to happen? Like, stop. Like, just
the only thing we have to do, Trev, is we have to ensure we finish top 4. That's it.
Exactly that.
That's exactly it. And finishing 4th is the fucking same as finishing 2nd. It just is. I know you get a little bit of extra TV money or whatever if you finish 2nd. I don't care.
Well, you'd have to spend it, wouldn't you? You'd have to spend it.
That's the thing. As far as I'm concerned, if you're 2nd, you might as well be 4th because you haven't won dick all, and all you win is getting a spot in the Champions League, which the team that finishes 4th get as well.
Hari Sethi with his Costas could use a lesson in fashion line in the chat there.
Oh, there was some belters, some fella.
Fella, you need to.
What was? Oh, I'll find. There's a chap. His name is my surname is Khan. Is his Twitter handle, and he had a couple of absolute pearlers in the gentle humor reign tonight. What did he say to me? So I said fashion is getting absolutely rinsed by. I said Costas is getting absolutely rinsed by a lad called Fashion, and he replies with, "Don't worry, he'll figure it out. He'll figure out a solution soon."
Oh, nice.
Dior Straits.
Oh, nice.
And just in case you haven't had enough after that, Rangers keep putting balls into the Chanel for him to run onto, which I thought was very clever.
Yeah. Whereas I was going to respond to you when you said about Costas getting rinsed by fashion, I was going to say, well, not so much rinsed as snow washed, but you know, I said I'd keep that one for the show. Let's get into it, Harry, because the first half is where any contentious chit chat we're going to have will be. I thought the half began with a great sign, an Ibu challenge on Jack on 2 minutes, where the Rangers man was down having a cry for himself. It was a free kick given against Ibu, which I thought was absolutely farcical. Anyway, I I'm a massive fan of this kid, and I'm delighted he's back. On 4 minutes, Lundstrom hit a crossfield ball to Sakala to the aforementioned fashion. He did Simicus completely and then hit a tame effort at Ali. That's the first of the moments of rinsing Dave was talking about. 4 minutes, Kent carried the ball down the left, cut in and curled the ball over the top on his right foot. Should have done better with it in terms of having a bit of space to get a shot on target. 16 minutes and we're 1 down, and it's our field, and it's Fabio contending for the ball in the midfield and loses out to Tavernier, and the ball goes from Jack then to Arfield. It's a really good pass by him, and Arfield's finish from right to left is straight into the bottom corner. Really well executed finish from the lad, to be fair to him. I think Arfield's in the veteran bracket now. I think he's 33 or 4 kind of age, and you know, the game had that feeling about it. It was just enough of a sickener that in the immediate aftermath, we had a very daft back pass by Joe Gomez on the 20-minute mark, which nearly put Arfield in again. And if they had scored that, you know, we may not be having this chat that we're going to have now tonight. We may well have gone to pot, or certainly the best we might have managed was a draw from that kind of a ridiculous setback. So we were very rattled, very shaky. We did nothing of note at all in those opening 15-20 minutes. There's literally not one attack that we formulated. So you'd have to say, even if they weren't worth their lead, we certainly underperformed dramatically in the opening 20 minutes. And the stat thrown out by BT Sports Fletch tonight was that is now 14 out of the last 20 games that we've gone behind in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a remarkable level of consistency that we're showing. It's not in the area that we would want it to be, and I think, you know, whilst we've spoken about sort of the big disparity in quality, I think, yeah, you did find yourself worried, obviously, sort of conceding first, the atmosphere, and that's stoking it even more in terms of the crowd getting behind the team, the dodgy back pass, like you mentioned. It's not the sort of assured start that you want to be seeing. And it's, I suppose, the start to the second half was what I was hoping for from the first start, from kickoff, and it was sluggish, it was slow, it was nothing that you wanted to see given sort of recent performances as well. And you as the first half sort of progressed, Trev, you just were left sort of scratching your head and going, once again, this team doesn't necessarily look like they've really worked that much on this system, and why is it not yet, again, certain players looking exhausted, not doing their defensive responsibilities. And so, yeah, early on it was made for pretty grim viewing, and you thought that even despite the change in quality, Rangers were going to find a way to hurt us. So, yeah, early days it was, you were getting an uncomfortable feeling in your stomach, I'd say.
And Dave, to just get a little bit from you on this sort of phenomenon that has occurred where we go behind in games, and it's now way past a pattern and into a trend, into a thing that needs putting right quite urgently. A 10-15 game run needs to occur where we go ahead. We know that under Klopp, and with this group of players, we're capable of putting a run together. It's just you don't have any faith in it at the moment. And you don't have any faith in it at the moment because of the fact that we keep going behind to subpar and inferior, to us at least, opposition. And we always think that they're inferior and subpar, and they often are. But it's usually because we are playing awfully ourselves, Dave. Yeah. And this trend is another one that needs to be booked. I'm wary of talking about corner turning as you are, and as I'm sure as Harry is, because I don't have any faith, which I've always had under Jurgen Klopp, that the next game will see redemption. I don't have that. I wish I did. I want to look forward to City now thinking, well, that's us, we're on the pig's back, it'll all be fine from now on. but I don't have that. We're equally capable of turning up there and being awful. And that's just a worry that I'd love us to put to bed. There are a few things maybe that we can talk about as we look at the second half that we could possibly do to address that. Maybe some personnel coming back are going to help that. But what do you put it down to? This, I'm wincing a bit, Dave, as I listen to every second person that I encounter. I do know a lot of Liverpool fans in real life talking about lads being knackered and exhausted and all that. And just, to me, just feels a little bit like an easy way out. I understand it. I understand where it's coming from, but I'd rather something a bit more tangible than they're all knackered, because a lot of lads play a lot of football and they don't play that awfully, you know?
That's the thing. I mean, you know, we hear, oh, this team played 63 games last season. Yeah, and what? Nobody played all 63 games. Henderson played the most games. What did he play, 51 or something like that? So it's not like they've played any more football themselves individually last season than they had in previous seasons. The club just played more games. But it's not an excuse. Now, I can see an excuse for one or two individuals simply on the basis of they're being asked to do far too much. Like, I think Fabinho has been asked to do far too much over the last 12 months, because the way that right side midfield role was changed, and be it Harvey, be it Hendo, be it Naby, whoever played there, they weren't playing it as a right-sided midfielder. They were playing much further forward, and he was being asked to cover all of that ground in front of Trent and do his own job. And that's just a little bit too much to ask of anybody. I think if you look at the goals we've conceded this season, in particular the first goals, most of them come down to individuals simply not doing their job. And that's not a tiredness factor. And unfortunately, there is one player who is frequently the biggest culprit in that. And we've conceded 12 goals in the league this season. And that one single player has been largely at fault for 7 of them. And tonight, when they scored their first goal, he was the player closest to Arfield before Arfield made his run. And he never even picked up on the fact that Arfield was there. He never looked at him. He's playing in a double pivot in midfield. The other midfielder has gone across to try and win the ball after Carvalho loses it. It then becomes your job to be aware of everything that's going on in the centre of midfield, including tracking any and all runners. And he's completely unaware that the player's there. Now, I wouldn't put the sole focus of the blame for that goal on him tonight. It's not like the Arsenal one. It's not like the second Arsenal goal. It's not like the 2 he was at fault for against United. It's not like the goal he was at fault for against Newcastle, where he just was completely unaware that he was, meant to track the runner that was stood beside him. This was just a lack of awareness. This came down to simply not understanding his job, not taking the moment to look around and see what the threat was. But when you've got one player who's consistently causing you problems like that, oftentimes it can be as simple as just taking that player out and putting a competent defensive player in there. It just can.
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Now, if we are to address our various issues, we are going to need, I don't think there's any doubt about it now, to see an addition or two. We'll be talking about that with a bit more of a frenzy as it becomes a possibility Whether or not
we've nothing else to do during the World Cup.
Exactly. Whether or not it becomes a reality is a different thing. But for now, we've got to go with the guys that we've got. There are lads falling over left, right, and centre and being ruled out for long periods of time. And Joe Gomez is a guy who's struggled with injury a lot over the last few years. Like I said, he's back in the team now. He has been a little bit sketchy on a few occasions and quite sketchy on one or two. And he had another sketchy moment in the immediate aftermath of the goal. I just mentioned that, a really silly kind of
It took Joe a little bit of time to settle into that game tonight.
But did you think he did? Because I thought by the end of the game, he looked a different lad.
I would say by about 25 minutes in, he'd come to grips completely with Ryan Kent. He'd remembered that I used to play against this fella every day in training. I'm much better than him. And he basically put him in his pocket. Kent had a couple of moments early in the game. Joe had that mistake. Like, you have to remember with Joe, the guy has barely played any football in 2 years. Like, it's 2 years since he blew out his knee, give or take a couple of weeks. And that injury, that takes 2 years to get back from. Go and listen to the fatigue index pod that Simon and Marty Loughran did afterwards. And listen to Marty describe that injury and the road back from it and the surgery itself. He described it as like trying to stitch two horses' tails together. And said that as you recover, you don't know for certain that the surgery has been a success until the very end stage of your rehabilitation. And Marty Loughran said, it's a year to get back on the pitch and another year to get back to your level, if you ever get back there. Gomez is still coming up to that point. He has barely played any football. He saw very little action last season, a lot of appearances, but no sustained runs in the team and no kind of big chunks of games. He's getting 5 minutes here, 15 there, 8 here and 7 there, that kind of nonsense. Joe needs to work his way in. That's just how he is. He's not one of these players that you just pick him up and drop him into a situation. Now, I thought when he came on against Arsenal, he had a ropey first 5 and then settled in, and I thought he did really well against Martinelli. And today it took him a little bit longer to get going, but once he did, I actually thought he was absolutely outstanding from about 20-25 and just about 2 or 3 minutes after he made that big blunder. From then on, I thought he was absolutely outstanding. Got up and down the wing and just locked up that position defensively, which is exactly what we need. And when we talk about a team that's become easy to score against, what you need is your individuals to do their fucking jobs. And Joe Gomez did his job brilliantly tonight, as did the fella next to him in Big Ibu. And that is a huge bonus for us.
Yeah, to get that side sorted is a lovely thing. And to, for context, when Joe injured himself, he was in the middle of a run where he was
playing really well,
arguably performing better than possibly the best defender we've ever had. On a game-to-game basis, it was remarkable. Harry, to go through the next little chunk of the match with you, we tried to start getting into the game a little bit. 22 minutes, Fabio Carvalho has a shot from a nice Fabinho pass. His effort is low and about a yard wide. And then on 22, Fabio Carvalho has another shot. This time it's deflected for a corner. And what do you know? One of the decent the deliveries by Kostas Tsimikas over on the right, an in-swinging left-footed corner, is met by Bobby Firmino at the near post in a way in which he has no right to be meeting it. His execution of the header, by the way, didn't get half enough praise. It's tremendous, confident and expertly executed. And I think it really sickened Rangers in a way that they were not expecting to be sickened. They had their lead for all of 6 or 7 minutes, and then we did that. And if to say it was against the run of play wouldn't be strictly true, because we had those couple of Carvalho efforts in the lead up to it, but it was a real flattener for them and expertly dispatched, like I say, Harry, in a way that he doesn't get enough credit for. Talk to me about that goal, and then we'll do the next couple of minutes in the first half as well.
Yeah, it's always good to see in reality. I mean, I see what you're saying about the technique of the header, and I think he deserves lots of credit for that. But just in terms of the actual simplicity of the goal itself, just really satisfying. Like to get your way back into a game like that where you've had a shaky start because the side that you're playing against has defended a set piece so poorly. I mean, because let's be honest. I mean, there's some clever stuff going on there in terms of us overloading the far post and Bobby just sneaking in at the near post. But essentially, he is marked. He just holds off his man. It doesn't really make much of an effort to sort of compete with him in the air. Bobby barely jumps, to be honest. And it's just an excellent header. So I think it was really important that we scored as soon after they scored. I think we've seen in games where we don't get that goal, don't get that equaliser quickly after a team has gone ahead against us, and it can prove a little bit more difficult. The team gets a bit more demoralised, especially when they're going through this shaky patch as well. So yeah, really satisfying, and also satisfying from the perspective. I mean, we didn't know what we were going to see after that, but yeah, Bobby is this renaissance of Bobby finding his ruthless streak again in front of goal. Whilst we're really going through a real tough period, struggling through this period, yeah, it's been one of our little tonics that we've been able to enjoy, isn't it? Sort of Bobby appearing to have rediscovered elements of his mojo. So yeah, very happy to see it, and also happy in terms of just one of these totems of the Klopp side. I mean, I think we're talking a lot now about the next evolution or necessary changes to the way in which we've expected the side to play, or we've seen the side play for years. So just satisfying that Bobby is able to roll back the years in certain ways and still be an influential figure, because obviously he's was one of the very, very first most influential figures in this evolution, even if he arrived before Klopp did. So yeah, good to see him do that. And who knows what it is? Maybe Bobby just really wants to go to the World Cup. I think he's got a lot of competition to do that, but for whatever reason he's doing this. It's wonderful to see.
He's front and center a couple of minutes later, Harry, where he plays Darwin in. Darwin gets completely creamed on with a follow through by Tavernier on 25 minutes, and then my signal started to go a little bit, but I don't think I was missing anything, to be honest with you. The next thing I've written down is that poor old Hendo had a nightmare minute there on 34. He had one awful ball to put us in trouble, and then as we recovered from the trouble and he's leading the counter, it's an absolutely atrocious ball forward to fuck the counter attack up. And I was just thinking, oh, poor lad, that is just a bad minute. On 40 minutes there was a sort of a chance where Kent had a go at Joe Gomez and cut back and had a shot which went out for a corner. And on 41 minutes, we have the second one of those moments Dave was referring to at the start of the show, where Sakala did Tsimikas up like a kipper, and his pullback actually is met by Arfield, and his first time effort is blocked brilliantly by Ibu Konate, front and centre again. And Arfield's attempt, I think, I don't think he did anything wrong. I think it was a well struck shot, and I think it was heading for the corner. Whether Allison gets there or not is moot, because Ibu does his job. Goldson went off injured in 44, and they had to bring on King, who started the last game for Goldson on that 44-minute mark, and that rounded out the first half. Was there anything in the aftermath of the goal there between that 23-minute mark and the 45 or 46-minute mark that you found to be of note? Because there were precious few incidents that I could find to talk about.
I think it was that chance that you mentioned where Sakala did Tsimikas and crossed it in. For me, that was a really, really alarming period. Not because Tsimikas got done by sort of a fast wing. I mean, you're going to see that from time to time. It's not you don't want to see it at all. But I mean that wasn't for me the most alarming element. The most alarming element for me was that when that pullback came in, Rangers had maybe 3, 4 players ready for that pullback. Arfield obviously makes contact it's a fantastic tackle from Ibu to save us. But my first instinct was, hang on, how are there three players from Rangers there waiting for this pullback? And then you look at the position of our midfielders as well. And we're not just talking about Hendo here, we're also talking about Fab. And both of them are just, they're nowhere at all. And it's this lack of tracking of runners that is just sends a shiver down you a little bit, because you're thinking, God, this is a better side. They are not missing that chance at all, as we've seen with better sides in the Premier League, even sides that we would consider that we should be beating quite comfortably. These runners go, our midfield haven't tracked them, and they put away that chance. They take that chance. So for me, that was a little bit of a sort of a slap across the face right before half time, that's still happening, even against a side like Rangers, that our midfielders could allow that to happen. And we've spoken about it at length in other pods. Is it a mixture of fatigue of some players having done too much work because of the system changes, like Dave mentioned with Fab? Is it just a case of certain players who just have never really been fantastic at tracking runners anyway? But the fact that still happened was a bit of a wake up call, and I hope that was replayed at half time, and I hope that there's some strong words said about that, because it's not acceptable. So it's not going to help us get out of this run.
Lads, leaning into the Guy Drinkle alternative Pep book cover there that I just posted in the chats rather than the intensity version. Dave, the second half. Yes, exactly. The second half, Dave, begins with a nice break down the left by Darwin and a few others. We get a corner in 51. There's a Henderson air kick, and then Fabinho dinks the ball into absolutely nobody, and I'm feeling a little bit lost at sea. Then we see a gorgeous through ball by Bobby Firmino to Darwin Núñez on the 52nd minute mark. But Davis, I think, Ben Davies blocked the effort by Darwin. 53 minutes, Joe Gomez's ball into Darwin is decent. Good control and a wild effort. He's a long way out and you can see what he's trying to do, and he takes the ball down really well. That I found encouraging, because I did wonder about his touch on a few occasions over recent games, and that was nice to see. It was a very good piece of control, and then he just sort of flailed at the shot. When maybe a little bit of composure, he had a keeper off his line. Now, there was nothing easy about the opportunity, and you could see what he was trying to do with it. On 54, however, Dave, we are 2-1 up. And if the equaliser sickened them, I'm sure this really, really put them to bed altogether. It is Firmino, a fantastic cross, as you mentioned earlier on, by Joe Gomez, sort of bending it round King, putting it right where Bobby Firmino is running in from the left-hand side of the 6-yard box to finish quite sweetly. It's lovely. And I'm going to keep going with you till we get to 3, because there's a good chunk of match here and there's probably a few things you want to talk about. We have another chance after that. This time it's Harvey Elliott. He cuts in on 59 minutes, hits a bit of a token effort at McGregor from distance, and they're forced to bring on Davis, the ex-Southampton man, for Jack, who was their second injury of the night. 6 minutes after that, on 65, Darwin Núñez has his goal. I thought Fab did really well to intercept. He plays the ball into Carvalho. Carvalho passes it to Bobby Firmino, and that outrageous, unnecessary flick set for Darwin is a lovely thing. Perfectly paced pass to him. Kind of outrageous in so many ways. And the finish then from our man, if lads like me were stressing a little bit about his technique, would have shut up a lot of us, because it's expert and calm and clinical, and so many people could have screwed that up. I'm delighted for the kid.
Yeah, I mean, just on the first goal, well, there's the second goal as it is the first, the second half, and that cross from Joey Gomez. I mean, if Trent played that cross, we'd all fawn over it. So Joey deserves his flowers for that as well. The third goal of the game, you could hear the scream of delight from Wolverhampton, from Mr. Tandon, as we get a goal from pressing Brilliant work by Fabinho, obviously. Nice little ball by Fabio Carvalho into Bobby. The touch is just like, it's equal parts outrageous and completely unnecessary. Like, there's absolutely no need to do that, Bobby. A simple pass will suffice. But you could tell he was really feeling it. And Bobby, at the start of last season, Bobby had a very similar type of run form-wise. I think Simon said he's got a goal or an assist every 54 minutes so far this season, which is fairly ridiculous. The hope will be that he'll sustain that over the rest of this year, because we absolutely need him to, with the way everything else is going. But yeah, I mean, Darwin, he does it really well. He moves himself into an offside position, which causes the defense to shift back a yard. Then he works his way back onside to be ready for the next phase as Bobby lays it off to him. And it is an excellent finish. It was the movement and the finish reminded me a little bit of Ruud van Nistelrooy when he used to just do that little thing where he'd live offside, he'd just drift back on, and you never doubted as he struck through the ball that the ball was going to find its way into the corner. Really good goal for Darwin, and obviously his last involvement and back-to-back goals is huge for that lad's confidence, because he got a lot of shit in pre-season for pre-season games. Like, who cares about pre-season? All it's there for is to get fit. Doesn't matter if you score 1 goal or 100 goals. He banged in 4 in that one game, and it shut a lot of people up. And then he was brilliant in the Community Shield when he came on. He was absolutely outrageous that game. Came on against Fulham and changed the game for us, got us from the jaws of a defeat, put us ahead, and then obviously we managed to throw it away. But then the red card really did just ding him, and it really knocked his confidence. And you could see even before the red card, he was snatching at things, and he was obviously very eager to prove how good he is. And you can tell he is someone that does kind of dip in and out of social media, because he's posted a few things that are clearly a reaction to some of the stick he's gotten over the years. What he needs to understand, someone needs to sit him down and say, look, most of the stuff people say on social media, they don't even believe. Social media is made up of 3 or 4 groups. The 2 loudest groups are the really stupid people and the people who play really stupid characters on Twitter. And they're the type of people that put out tweets about Darwin where, he tries to send a cross in training and they're, oh, what a bad shot, all that kind of shit. Getting a couple of goals like this will really help him. And I do think we'll see him really kick on as the weeks go by, as this team around him gets better. I mean, the service into him in the first half was nothing short of a disgrace. Some of the passes that were played into him were appalling. You wouldn't see it, Trev, with Nav and Cosmos. Absolutely shocking stuff. There was one counter-attack we had where Henderson played the ball behind him and then roared at him for running too fast on the counter-attack or whatever the fuck the problem was. But once he got that little nice set from Bobby and he got one good set from Diaz the weekend, he's showing, give him a real chance, and he will take it. And couldn't be happier for that lad tonight. And even nicer than he gets to go off and get his hug from Kloppo.
Absolutely, and it's all changed in 66 minutes when Mo, Robbo and Thiago come on for Costas, Darwin and Hendo, and Thiago straight into it with Mo, lofting a little dink pass in on 70 minutes, and Mo's attempt is saved by the keeper, but he's in that spot that we were talking about. Jota comes on for Bobby Firmino at this point. Now, it's all going to change. We're going to talk very quickly about Mo's hat-trick back-to-back here, and then I'll let you both in to talk about whatever your favourite part of it is. On 74 minutes, we did have a flowing move. It ended with Harvey cutting in and shooting narrowly over. It's a decent dig. And now everything starts to change. We get this 6-minute, 10-second or 12-second or whatever the hell it is hat-trick from Mo Salah, where we go from being 3-1 up to 6-1 up. The first of Mo's goals great piece of control to take a lofted ball out of the air, incredible strength then to hold off Barisic, and he shoots from the narrowest of angles between Davies, who's coming back, and the keeper, who's coming forward inside the far post. He's nearly no angle to work with, but it doesn't seem to make any difference to him. They bring on Matondo, Morelos and Wright at that point when they're 4-1 down for Cholak, Kent and Sakala. And they're only on the field 3-4 minutes when Mo has his second goal. This time it's a Thiago ball into Jota, who has a lovely little set for Mo, takes his touch, in fact rolls his foot over the top of the ball at one point before hooking it back home. Really beautiful, expert finish. The kind of finish that Mo Salah does that not many other people do. And 2 minutes or 3 minutes later, he's put us 6-1 up with his third in, like I say, 6 odd minutes. Lovely touch again by Jota. Mo is coming onto it from that customary position of his and curls it in that signature way of his inside the post. It's a shot we've seen him attempt a million times, and enough of them go in for it to be, like I say, his signature effort. And you know, it's only a few minutes to go until we're talking about the 7, but we'll save that. That Mo Salah hat-trick was a thing of beauty. Every one of the goals perfectly taken, gorgeous finishes, outrageous in their own way. And I think, if I'm right, I saw a stat somewhere which said that Diogo Jota is the first person to assist a hat-trick since back in the Collymore days, I believe. So that is something in and of itself, which will stand him in good stead too. Harry, pick your favourite of them.
Yeah, I think the second one with him putting his foot on the ball before sort of stroking it home was great. I mean, the third is sort of a classic, isn't it? Classic Mo Salah sort of finish in terms of what you expect him to do when he gets the ball on his left foot in that position. I think it's the first one, to be honest. It's probably my favourite in terms of the touch is outrageous, the angle is ridiculous, and it's a toe poke, it's not really outside of the foot, but it's just it sort of set the tone, right? I mean, we weren't really sure what was going to come next in terms of getting that hat trick, but it's just at times when we've spoken about Mo Salah after a game, we've mentioned the business mode. Mo Salah just comes on and goes, right, how much time have I got? Okay, I'll see what I can do with the time that I've got. I actually reminded of a game against Palace, I think, where we won. Was it a crazy seven goal scoreline as well? I think against Palace under Hodge, where I'm pretty sure Salah came on at quite late on and managed to bag a couple of goals as well. Some outrageous finishes, and we see it from time to time with him, just reminding us of the level of player that he is. We all started the pod tonight with the same sort of comments, right, about being big fans of that sort of that thing where you put Mo Salah given the ball near the goal, and lo and behold, he does what he does. But it's just a reminder. Yes, it's against weak opposition, but we need him to rediscover that ruthlessness in front of goal, that confidence in front of goal. You need him to be going into a game like this weekend. Yeah, let's say irrespective of what we think about the title race or anything like that, even remotely like that. It's about getting him back and firing, and getting the player that we were all delighted signed that new contract in the positions to be as dangerous and as painful for opposition as possible. So, yeah, I mean, there's elements of all three goals that are sort of classic Mo Salah, and then we'll probably come on to talk about sort of the way in which he celebrated with Harvey for the 7th as well, which I thought was a lovely moment as well. So, yeah, just a like getting on the action, look, smiling, confident, and back in the goals.
Yeah, and as Harry rightly says, Dave, there are 4 goals in 11 minutes. I'll let you go back and pick your favourite one of Mo's in a second if there's anything you want to say about that. But we will just talk about the Harvey goal to finish it off. Harry, I'll be back to you for your wrap-up thoughts in a minute, and then we'll finish with Dave's. But let's just finish this game out, Dave, because there is a goal for Harvey Elliott. It's sort of, for reasons best known to the match officials, ruled out initially for offside. I don't understand why, because Thiago does really well. He plays the ball into Mo Salah, who's clearly not offside. Mo does very well to centre the ball to Jota, who misses when clearly not offside in a central position. And the ball spills out to Harvey Elliott, who's raiding in from the right-hand side. And he sweeps that rebound home with his right foot, actually. Beautifully done, nicely executed finish. Good bit of technique for him with his supposed standing leg. And I could not understand for the life of me why they weren't giving it. And I was more and more confident as the seconds ticked past that we were going to get it given, because I couldn't see what could possibly be the issue. And as Harry rightly says, there was that nice thing where, Mo was very excited for the kid to actually have his goal. And, he's kind of standing there with his arms around him. And these little things in a season where so many things are going awry, you don't want to read into them too much, but they are signs of togetherness and affinity. When so many times, I don't know about you, but I felt like, has there been a bust up in this squad because something's so off? It's lovely to see that. It's nice to be reminded of it, and that's kind of one of the many things that I was alluding to at the start of the show. That, look, we're far from being the finished article or anything like that, but if these little things start happening increasingly, you might get some semblance of a season back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it puts to bed the idea that Mo is aloof and sees himself above other players, and nonsense like that that's been floated around on the interwebs by the two groups that I mentioned earlier on. Clearly, absolutely delighted for the lad, like standing, that goes over to him. Harvey's standing there with his fingers crossed. Mo prays to Allah for him very quickly. Harvey making the sign of the cross at Ibrox might not be the best idea. They might be a little bit upset about that. Yeah. By the way, shout out to the four tricolours in the away end tonight. Did love to see that. But no, it was great to see Mo doing that for Harvey and being with the lad and able to celebrate with him immediately as he gets his goal given. Clearly, Mo, after he got his second goal, Mo started to work quite hard to try and get Jota a goal, and he passed up one or two opportunities at better or easier passes to try and work the ball to Jota, but obviously does really well in this instance, works it to Jota, who probably should shoot first time. And I think if he was in a Jota run of form where he was banging in goals regularly, he would have shot first time and he probably would have scored. But yeah, really well done by Harvey, who'd had a couple of questionable efforts, I would say, on his left foot earlier in the game. And great to see him get a goal. Like, your first Champions League goal, it's something he's always going to have. No matter where his career goes from here, he's always going to be able to say, I scored a goal in a Champions League game. Because if we factor in how many footballers there are, it's a very short amount, a very small amount that actually get to say they scored in a Champions League game. You're talking about the elite of the elite to be playing at this level, regardless of what country you're from. I mean, Rangers, if they were in England, would be a championship level side, but in Scotland, they're one of the two elite teams. So, they are to be respected for what they've done to get here. And just a brilliant moment, just an absolutely brilliant moment. And I just thought what did Thiago come on 67?
Yeah.
Like, Fab, I thought, went up a level as soon as he had Thiago next to him. Just seemed a lot more confident and free in himself. Thiago plays with a level of authority that's just second to none. And I'm not saying this is hyperbole. Like, there's a real chance he's the best player to ever play at Ibrox, because he is an all-timer. He's that level. And the difference he makes to our team, like, everything is so easy to him.
But don't you find it comical that this lad, who is, I think, the most gifted midfielder I've seen play for Liverpool,
and he's tough as nails as well.
Don't you find it comical how much he throws himself around the pitch like a fucking lunatic? Like,
do you know what, Trev? I was gonna say on the pod on Sunday, he was the only one on the pitch on Sunday providing any sort of real leadership. He was the one talking out things with the referee, with the opposition, with his own players, trying to get them going in the game. And I thought tonight when he came on, he was the most commanding presence on the pitch.
Yeah.
And he's talking everyone through the game. He's doing all their thinking for them. He's like a chess master. He's in total control of everything. And there was one lovely little interplay he had down the left with Robbo, where Robbo plays it into him. Thiago's under pressure. And just this arrogant little flick back to Robbo. Robbo plays it, I think, to Jota, and Jota ends up bringing it down. I think we got a corner out of it. And I just thought, like, this fella is just, he has mastered this game. It's almost too easy for him at times, which is part of why I think he does go almost looking for trouble, horses himself into challenges. Do you remember, sorry, I just kicked my bin. Do you remember last season when we spanked United at Anfield? And in the post-match coverage, the one thing Gary Neville was completely in awe of was not the technical level of Thiago. He said, Thiago's gone around that pitch smashing people tonight. And this is the thing. You're talking about one of the most technically gifted midfielders ever, who, if he'd made a better choice at international level, would be starting for Brazil in this upcoming World Cup, like his father did in '94 when he was part of the winning team in the World Cup. This guy has every single technical attribute you could want. He reads the game at a level very, very few ever have. Very, very few. You're talking the elite of the elite. Your Xavis and Iniestas. Like, he reads the game on their level. And then he's brilliant defensively. Like, he is brilliant defensively. The only thing he doesn't have is a little bit more pace. And obviously he does have the injury issues, but everything about his game is absolutely top level. And it doesn't get talked about enough how good that fella is and how combative he is.
No, and the spring as well from a
He
standing
wins
start.
80% of his headers. I've never seen anyone that small who's not like Ginny Wijnaldum's a little bit taller, but Ginny's a freak athlete. Thiago's not a freak athlete, but he's brilliant in the air because he's really aggressive and he's fearless, absolutely fearless. And there are other midfielders in our squad that could learn an awful lot from him about putting a foot into a tackle.
The fearlessness is a tremendous thing. I'll be back to you.
I'm half tempted, Trev, to call him as the man of the match. And I'll tell you why when you come back to me for my final thoughts.
Do, and I get it. I will do that in a second, and let's do that now, myself and yourself, Harry, and wrap up with your takeaway from this. I mean, it's hard to avoid the obvious points, but there might be one or two things that you want to pick out that we didn't touch on. How would you sum that up then?
Yeah, just it was a welcome tonic, wasn't it, after some of the performances we've seen of late, after the first half as well. To see the side playing with a real swagger, a real confidence in those last however many minutes it was. I think Dave was mentioning, since not just from when Thiago came on, but I think especially from that point onwards, some of the slickness of the interplay was really noticeable. I mean, it's Salah combining with others after his hat-trick, trying, as Dave mentioned there, clearly trying to then put one on the plate for Jota. I think actually Jota did have one more or less on the plate for him that I was surprised he didn't just finish it straight away, to be honest. I think that was just leading up, wasn't it, to Elliott's goal, wasn't it, where he had that chance to maybe have finished off the move ahead of time. But really, really satisfying to see. It seemed to be more authority about us, more control in our play. Yes, I think we have to sort of factor in the game state where it was at, the fact that sort of obviously Darwin gets that goal before these subs come on. Rangers are on the back foot; they're a poor side anyway. But with all that mitigation to one side, it's just fun really to be able to enjoy watching a Liverpool performance, racking up the goals. Some of your favourite players racking up the goals again. Some of the totems of the side, like I was mentioning with Bobby. So all in all, I thought it was quite an encouraging second half. The return of Konate, like you mentioned, some of the promise that we saw with Elliott and Carvalho growing into the roles that they had in in this formation, and perhaps especially with Diaz being out for a while, Carvalho on that left is a interesting option, especially how he drops back into midfield to give them a bit more support, and often pops up in that space, same as Elliot, where you're looking for somebody who's more of a number 10 to pop up, to be influential, to find a through ball. I mean, always nice to have through balls and players making runs in behind, to be found with them is a fun thing. So yeah, overall, sort of you're left with a real satisfied feeling at the end of that game. And as I mentioned, I think towards the start, I've rarely seen. I mean, I've seen fans leaving stadiums before, but I've rarely seen fans running, sprinting out of the stadium. Such was the exodus from Rangers fans as the goals were going in. So it was very satisfying in the end.
And in terms of stuff coming up from you, I presume you're going to have one ahead of City. Do you have your speaker lined up or your guest lined up for that one?
Yeah, no. So recorded that today.
Nice.
Dan Burke from One Football and the Blue Moon podcast. And yeah, we just it was an interesting discussion. He was. He's a really lovely guy, Dan, and I think in the nicest way possible, like I sometimes did, I think, actually, on some of the rivalry cons last season. You end up having a conversation where you get to the end of it and go, that was very nice. They're going to batter us. I think that was that's not the impression I got. I'm certainly hoping for a good result on Sunday. But he was as magnanimous as he could have been, whilst also more or less admitting that he more or less sees no weaknesses in his side whatsoever at this stage, but is also fearing coming to Anfield. So I was happy he's still fearing coming to Anfield, Trev. So hopefully we can reinforce that for him.
Yeah, man. Let's hope. I'm very vocally writing off league stuff, but obviously I want us to win all the games and maximize our chances to do that. So I look forward to listening to that now. I'll probably be listening with the equivalent, the oral equivalent of looking through your fingers. I'll probably be listening to it in that kind of way as he outlines the strengths of this City team. And Dave, to get your wrap up thoughts and finish with what you've got for the rest of the week as well.
Well, if the City fan would like any information on the weak points of his team, his manager's fetish of playing the Brummy Adam Lallana would be one. The fact that none of their fullbacks can defend would be the second one. And if we had Luis Diaz, I'd be a lot more confident going into that game because I think he'd cause them absolute nightmares. But we don't, and we can talk about it another day. Quickly, podcast for the week. There'll be a scouted tomorrow for City. There'll be two-footed every day and Daily Red every day. Last thoughts on the game today. Obviously, Mo, like you guys said, I mean, the fastest Champions League hat-trick ever. Sensational. The most goals ever for a single English club in the Champions League. It's sensational. I think he's within 5 of Drogba's record now as the most goals by an African player in the Champions League. And when you consider that Drogba played well into his 30s, it's a hell of, and how deep Chelsea used to go year on year. It's a hell of a record to have. Obviously, great to get him scoring and confident. Jota is the one we need to work on now. No matter what happens, a ball has to fly into a net off Jota's arse and get him confident. Because if he finds a bit of form, the reason you can have a bit of confidence in this team, even when everything else is looking like a bit of a train wreck, like the defence and midfield, is that we know Mo Salah is one of the best goal scorers in the world. We know that Diogo Jota scores in bundles. He will put a run together where he gets like 12 goals in 15 games or something like that. We know that Bobby can go through runs like this. That's a positive. We know that Darwin showed it last season that he's capable against the best defences of causing them nightmares. Now we have the two young bucks in Harvey and Fabio. They'll both take a lot of confidence from tonight. Like, that's a big hostile atmosphere to go into as well. And they were completely unawed by it. Completely unawed. They could have been playing in the park with their mates, especially in that second half. They just silenced that crowd and played their game, which was great to see, especially in the second half. Like I said, when they figured out how to play those roles and how to make it work for both of them, I thought it was really, really good. I suppose the Thiago thing, I thought he was brilliant when he came on. Love that he threw himself into a couple of tackles, but like you, was wincing a little bit because, we cannot afford for him to get injured. Whatever else happens, we have to keep him fit. But his performance didn't start when he came onto the pitch tonight. It started when the referee, who clearly had his wife and his kids in the crowd and got a case of, main character syndrome and decided it was all about him, went over to lecture Thiago about where he was warming up. And Thiago just starts arguing with him and gives absolutely no fucks what the referee's telling him. He's like, I'm warming up here. This is where I've been told to warm up. I'm warming up here. And then he does that thing where he turns around and plays to an audience and implores, where am I went? Arms up. Where am I went to work out? Is it here? Is it over? Where am I meant to be? And then just goes back to doing whatever it was he was doing beforehand. I thought the ref had a bit of a poor game, especially first half. I thought there was a couple of really questionable challenges by Rangers players. One by Connor Goldson on Darwin, where he does win the ball, but the follow-through is absolutely shambolic.
Yeah, I mentioned that one. He clears him out of it completely.
And it's not even reviewed by VAR. They reviewed the Joe Gomez one, which was nothing, and didn't review. That was dangerous play. I'm sorry, these things need to be slapped down on.
Steve McManaman told him, there's nothing there.
He can go and shite that fella. He is absolutely brain dead. Like a number of our former players who involve themselves in the media these days. Mm-hmm. I do want to say, Trev, your distaste for his co-commentator and the disdain with which you say the name Fletch it's always a highlight of these podcasts. Another highlight of the night, obviously, seeing the Rangers fans running from their own stadium with 15 left to go home to tear down their flags and furiously, fondle themselves into them while sobbing uncontrollably. That's always nice. I suppose I'll just finish by saying, in honor of a certain prick on Sky Sports who really wound me up today, no matter what happens with this Liverpool team, Trev, there's always a bit of graffiti on the wall, and the graffiti on the wall says, "We're magic."
There's a few of them boys in Sky winding me up as well today. They do need taking down a peg or two, so I'm delighted with that. Let's wrap it up there. Just a little bit north of the hour, about 70 odd minutes of a show. That's what we tend to average out with these, so we will go now and leave you back to your nights. Myself and Dave are back, I think, with Jim, is that right, man, for the City game, unless I'm mistaken, or is it Carl? I'm not sure which of the guys it is, but I think it's Jim. I think that's the pattern for the City game on Saturday. We will talk to you then, and Harry will be back with us, back in the loop very soon as well. So from Hari Sethi, from Dave Hendrick, and from myself, Trev Downey, this has been Raw on Anfield Index Pro. Good luck.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.